In front of millions of stunned viewers, Barron Trump exploded on live television, viciously pointing at Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and sneering, "That African doesn't belong anywhere near this stage," before the entire studio descended into chaos as Jasmine calmly fired back with a devastating bombshell that shattered Barron's world. She wasn't just questioning his politics. She was questioning who his real mother actually was. That was Late Night Spotlight, one of the most popular late-night talk shows in America, a place where politicians, celebrities, and public figures usually came to chat, crack jokes, and look relatable. The bright lights of Studio 6B in New York City hummed overhead as the audience settled into their seats. Barron Trump was 20 years old and tired of people treating him like some mystery kid who never spoke. He had always stayed out of the spotlight as much as possible, but tonight felt different. When the stage manager gave him the signal, he walked out under the bright lights. The audience clapped politely, and there she was already seated on the couch, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She looked sharp in a tailored suit, legs crossed with that confident posture everyone knew from her viral house floor moments. Their eyes met for a split second. Barron forced himself forward and took the chair across from the host. The host, known for keeping things loose and funny on his late-night show, grinned at the camera and kicked things off with his usual easy energy. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a special lineup tonight. First up, the youngest Trump, Barron Trump, joining us to chat about life in one of America's most talked-about families. And across from him, Texas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who never holds back when it comes to speaking her mind." The audience clapped again. The host turned to Barron with a friendly nod. "Barron, good to have you here, man. You've mostly stayed out of the public eye. What's it been like growing up in the Trump household? Any normal family moments you can share?" Barron leaned forward a little, keeping his answers short and careful like he had practiced. "It's been intense, obviously. Lots of security, lots of eyes on us all the time. But we still had dinners together when Dad was around, played sports in the yard, that kind of thing." He paused, then added, "Mom always made sure things felt as normal as possible at home." The word "mom" caught in his throat for half a second. His voice didn't break, but it hitched just enough that the studio felt a tiny shift in the air. In the third row of the audience, an older woman, a former longtime staffer for the Trump family who had worked security and household details years ago, sat quietly. She shook her head slowly, almost to herself, eyes fixed on Barron. He caught the movement out of the corner of his eye. Their gazes locked for a brief moment. She looked away fast, but it was too late. That small headshake sent a rush of heat up Barron's neck. His pulse kicked harder. The host was still smiling, trying to keep the conversation light, when Barron's face changed. 1 second he was answering questions about family dinners. The next, his jaw tightened and his eyes locked on Jasmine Crockett. Without any warning, the words exploded out of him. "That African is here again. I don't want to sit here." The studio went dead silent. Barron shoved his chair back so hard it flipped over with a loud crash. The audience gasped. Cameras swung toward him as he stood there, breathing fast, fists clenched at his sides. The host's eyes went wide. "Whoa, Barron! Hold on, let's just take a breath here." But Barron wasn't listening. The doubt that had been eating at him for months, that secret email, the strange looks, the questions about who he really was, all came rushing out at once, aimed straight at the woman sitting across from him. He pointed his finger right at Jasmine, voice loud and sharp. "You don't belong on this stage." The host jumped up from his chair, hands out like he was trying to stop a fight. "Barron, come on, man. That's not okay. We're all here to talk. Let's keep it civil." Crew members froze backstage. A few audience members whispered in shock. Jasmine stayed seated, but her eyes narrowed. She didn't flinch or raise her voice. She just looked straight at Barron with that steady, unflinching stare that had made her famous on the house floor. After a long, heavy second, she spoke calmly, almost too calm for the chaos exploding around her. "Kid, what problem do you have with me?" Her tone cut through the noise like a knife. It wasn't angry, it was direct and cold, daring him to explain himself in front of millions of people watching live. Barron's chest rose and fell fast. He could feel every eye in the studio on him. The old staffer in the third row was staring hard now, but he didn't care. The pressure inside him had finally snapped. He yanked his phone out of his pocket, fingers flying across the screen. "You want to know my problem? Fine. Show me your American identity. Right now." Before anyone could stop him, Barron connected his phone to the studio's big monitor. A scanned document popped up on the huge screen behind them. Some official-looking paper with seals and signatures that he had found online months ago and saved as proof. It wasn't real, but in that moment it felt real enough to him. The image filled the screen. Lines about citizenship, background checks, and red-flagged entries that looked suspicious if you didn't know better. The audience leaned forward. Someone muttered, "What the hell's that?" The host looked panicked, waving at the control booth to cut the feed. But it was too late. The document was already up for everyone to see. Barron kept pointing at the screen, voice shaking with anger. "This is what I'm talking about. You act like you belong here, but I want real proof. Not just words. Show the public right now." Jasmine didn't look at the screen. She kept her eyes locked on Barron, her expression still steady. But there was a new sharpness in her voice when she finally replied. "I've shown it many times, kid. In Congress, in court, in front of the whole country. But go ahead. Keep digging if it makes you feel better." The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. Barron stood there, phone still in his hand, breathing hard. Then Barron took a step closer to Jasmine, voice rising with every word. "If you're so proud of your identity, then show us your DNA report right now. Right here on live TV. Let everyone see it. Stop hiding behind talk and prove you really belong." Jasmine didn't even blink. She sat back slightly, her voice cold and steady, cutting through the chaos like ice. "I've shown it many times, kid. In public records, in congressional filings, in front of cameras bigger than this one. I don't need to prove anything to you tonight." The audience murmured louder. Some people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The host looked like he was about to have a heart attack, waving his hands trying to regain control. Okay. Let's dial this back, folks. We're getting way off track here." But nobody was listening to him anymore. Barron's face was flushed red, his breath coming fast. He felt cornered, and the only way out he could see was to push harder. Then Jasmine leaned forward, her eyes locked on Barron with a look that said she was done playing defense. She reached into a slim folder on the table beside her and pulled out a single printed page. Without raising her voice, she started reading it out loud, clear enough for every microphone to catch. "According to DNA hints I have, your mother is Ivanka. The markers don't line up with Melania. We need to address this before it leaks from inside the family." The words hit the room like a slap. It was an email, real, leaked from an anonymous source deep inside the Trump orbit. Jasmine had received it weeks ago and kept it ready. Barron's face went pale. The color drained out of him so fast he looked sick. His mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. The old staffer in the third row sat up straighter, eyes wide. The entire studio seemed to freeze for a second, then erupted in shocked whispers. Barron staggered back half a step, his mind spinning. That email matched the one he had found 2 months earlier. The same doubts, the same sick feeling. He felt exposed, like someone had ripped open his chest on national television. His hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. The doubt he had tried to bury was now being thrown in his face in front of millions. But he wasn't going down without fighting back. Something snapped inside him. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded, worn envelope. An old handwritten letter he had kept hidden for years. It was from Melania, written when he was still a kid. His voice cracked as he waved it in the air. "I've seen the letters. Melania never looked at me the way a real mother should." He unfolded the paper with trembling fingers and started reading a section out loud, his voice loud and raw. "Sometimes I wonder if this life is too much for him. He doesn't carry the same fire as the others. I do my best, but some bonds are harder to build." The studio exploded. Gasps and shouts filled the air. People in the audience stood up. The host was yelling, "Cut the feed! Cut it now!" But the cameras kept rolling. Jasmine's eyes widened for the first time, not in fear, but in genuine surprise at how deep this was going. Barron's face was twisted with pain and anger, tears starting to sting his eyes as he held the letter up like a weapon. "This isn't just about her identity," he shouted, voice breaking. "It's about mine too, and I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not." The tension was unbearable now. Barron stood there, letter still in his hand, breathing hard, while the whole world watched the cracks in the Trump family split wide open on live television. Barron's hands shook so bad he could barely hold the paper. His voice came out cracked and desperate, almost a shout. "If you're so sure about everything, then why delay the DNA test for me? Why hasn't anyone done it yet? Tell me that." The words hung in the air, raw and broken. Tears were already burning at the corners of his eyes. He wasn't the quiet Trump kid anymore. He was a young man cracking open live on television, and he couldn't stop it. The audience leaned in, phones up, recording every second. Jasmine opened her mouth to answer, but Barron didn't give her the chance. Something inside him completely snapped. He yanked his phone out again, fingers fumbling as he dialed. The studio went quiet fast when they realized what he was doing. Barron pressed the speaker button and held the phone up so the microphones could catch every word. It rang once, twice. Then Donald Trump's voice came through, loud and clear, sounding surprised and a little annoyed. "Barron, what's going on, son? I'm in the middle of—" Barron cut him off, his voice cracking hard as tears started rolling down his face. "Dad, tell them the truth. Is Melania really my mother, or is it Ivanka? I need to hear it from you right now. Everyone's watching. Just say it." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. You could hear Donald Trump suck in a sharp breath, almost like he was choking on the words. The whole studio held its breath. Then the president's voice came back, lower and rushed, trying to keep control. "Son, we talked about this in private. This isn't the place for—" Barron didn't let him finish. He cut the call off mid-sentence, thumb slamming the end button. The line went dead. Barron stood there, phone still raised, tears streaming down his cheeks. His shoulders shook. The vulnerability hit him all at once. The years of quiet doubts, the secret email, the letter from Melania, everything. Millions of people were watching him break down, and he didn't care anymore. The host was frozen, mouth open. Jasmine's eyebrows shot up, but even she looked thrown off by how real this had gotten. Before anyone could react, a voice exploded from the audience. "I saw the test results in 2018. It wasn't Melania." The old staffer, the same woman from the third row who had shaken her head earlier, shot up from her seat. Her face was red, hands clenched. She pointed straight at Barron, voice loud and shaking with emotion. "I worked in that house for years. I saw the sealed envelope. The results said it wasn't Melania. I kept quiet because they paid me to, but I can't watch this kid tear himself apart anymore." The studio erupted. People gasped loudly. Chairs scraped as others stood up. Cameras swung wildly between the woman and Barron. Barron spun around so fast he almost lost his balance, eyes bloodshot and wide with shock. His face went even paler. For a second it looked like his legs were going to give out. He stared at the woman, mouth open, the phone still dangling from his hand. You knew." His voice was barely a whisper at first, then it rose into a broken shout. "All this time you knew and you said nothing?" The woman nodded, tears in her own eyes now. "I'm sorry, Barron, but the truth has to come out. This lie has been killing you." Barron staggered back a step, nearly tripping over the flipped chair from earlier. His whole body trembled. The combination of his father's half-spoken words, Jasmine's email, and now this eyewitness blowing everything open. It was too much. The studio was pure chaos, shouts, flashing phone lights, the host screaming for security. But in the middle of it all, Barron looked completely shattered, eyes locked on that former staffer like she had just ripped the last piece of his world away. Barron wiped his face with the back of his hand, still shaking from the phone call and the former staffer's bombshell. His legs felt weak. He turned toward the exit, ready to walk off and leave the whole mess behind. The host was already waving at security to clear the way. But just as Barron took 2 steps, his phone buzzed hard in his pocket. He froze. The screen lit up with a new text from his dad. The message was short, but it hit like another punch. "Son, there's a sealed file from 2017. We handle this privately. Do not do this on TV." Barron stared at the words, heart pounding again. This was new proof, real proof, straight from his father. He spun back around, eyes wild, and marched straight back to the center of the stage. He dropped into the chair he had knocked over earlier, breathing heavy. The audience was still buzzing from the witness outburst, but everyone went quiet when they saw him return. He held the phone up high so the cameras could see it clearly. "Dad just admitted there's a sealed file," Barron shouted, voice cracking but loud enough for every mic to catch. He started reading the text out loud, word for word. "There's a sealed file from 2017. We handle this privately." He waved the phone around like a weapon. "See? Even my own father is admitting it. They've been hiding this from me for years." The studio exploded again with shocked murmurs. Phones were recording nonstop. Jasmine sat up straighter, her calm finally cracking just a little. But she wasn't about to let Barron take control. She reached for a small tablet on the table beside her, tapped the screen twice, and a short video clip appeared on the big studio monitor behind them. It was old footage, grainy but clear enough. Melania Trump, years younger, sitting in a private interview, or maybe a family video, speaking in a low voice. The words were unmistakable. "Sometimes I look at the other child and I wonder, he doesn't feel like mine the way the others do. It's complicated." The clip played for only 15 seconds, but it felt like forever. Jasmine had prepared it in advance, and now she let it hit at the perfect moment. The audience gasped loudly. Barron's eyes widened in horror as he watched his own mother's face on the screen saying those words. His mouth fell open. The pain on his face was raw and ugly. "You're destroying my life on live TV," Barron screamed at Jasmine, voice breaking into a shout. He jumped up again, pointing at her with the phone still in his hand. "You planned this. You came here with that video, that email, everything. This isn't about politics anymore. You're tearing my family apart in front of the whole country." Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She looked straight at him, steady as ever. "No, Barron. You started this when you attacked me. The truth was already there. I just stopped letting you hide from it." Barron's chest heaved. His face was red, tears mixing with sweat. He looked around the studio, at the shocked audience, at the former staffer still standing, at the host who had completely given up trying to stop anything. Everything was spinning. The sealed file text, the video of Melania, the email about Ivanka, the letter he had read earlier, all of it crashed down on him at once. Then the final wave hit. Barron's legs gave out. He dropped to one knee right there on the studio floor, right in front of the cameras. His shoulders shook hard as loud, ugly sobs broke out of him. Tears poured down his face. "For 18 years I pretended, but the mirror never lied to me," he cried, voice thick and broken. "I looked at her every day and knew something was wrong. I smiled for the pictures. I called her Mom, but deep down I always felt it. And now, everyone knows. I can't pretend anymore." The entire studio went dead silent. No one moved. No one whispered. The only sound was Barron's raw crying, heavy, painful sobs that echoed through the microphones. Even Jasmine stayed quiet, watching him with a mix of surprise and something almost like pity. The former staffer had tears running down her own cheeks. The host stood frozen, hands over his mouth. Millions watching at home were probably doing the same. Barron stayed on one knee, head down, crying, like the weight of the whole Trump name had finally crushed him. The bright studio lights showed every tear, every tremble. There was no more hiding, no more careful answers. His legs were unsteady, but he forced himself to stand straight. Tears still ran down his face, and his voice came out cracked and raw, but loud enough for every camera to catch. "This lie has to be faced. Tonight." He wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his shirt, breathing hard. The words weren't loud or angry anymore. They were tired, broken, but final. The audience sat frozen, watching this young man who had just fallen apart in front of them. Jasmine stayed in her seat, eyes fixed on him. The host didn't even try to speak. Everyone could feel that something big was about to happen. Barron turned like he was finally going to walk off the stage for good, but before he took the first step toward the exit, he stopped and spun back around. His eyes locked on Jasmine again. He raised his phone high, thumb moving fast across the screen. A new tab opened on the big studio monitor behind him, a live DNA testing website. Barron had just ordered a full paternity and maternity test right there on the spot during the commercial break chaos. The confirmation page flashed up for everyone to see, along with the tracking link. "Tomorrow the whole world will see the real DNA results I just ordered online," Barron said, voice still shaky but strong with determination. He pointed straight at the screen. "Here's the link. It's public now. No more hiding. No more sealed files. In 48 hours, we all find out the truth, once and for all." The audience erupted in loud gasps and shocked whispers. Phones lit up everywhere as people scrambled to copy the link. This was the final explosion. Barron had just made the DNA test real and public in front of millions. No going back. Jasmine slowly stood up from her chair. For the first time all night, she looked fully serious. No trace of the calm politician mask left. She stared directly at Barron, her voice cold and clear. "Then let the truth finally speak." Her words landed heavy. No yelling, no insults, just a simple challenge that carried more weight than anything else said that night. The two of them stood there facing each other for a long second, the air thick with everything that had exploded between them. Barron didn't say another word. He turned and walked off the stage, stepped slow but steady. The cameras followed him, zooming in tight on his face as he moved toward the exit. Tears were still falling down his cheeks, shining under the bright lights. But his chin was held high. His eyes looked straight ahead, determined, even through the pain. He didn't look back at Jasmine, didn't look at the audience, didn't look at the host. He just kept walking, like a man who had finally decided he couldn't carry the lie anymore. As Barron disappeared through the side door, the big screen behind the set lit up with one final message in bold white letters. DNA test results will be released in 48 hours. The studio stayed dead quiet for several long seconds. Then the murmurs started growing louder and louder. People were standing, talking fast, some already checking the link on their phones. The host tried to say something to close the show, but his voice sounded weak and stunned. Jasmine stood there alone on the stage now, arms at her sides, watching the empty doorway where Barron had just walked out. The whole country, hell, the whole world, had just watched a young man's private nightmare play out live on television. What started as a simple talk show appearance had turned into one of the most shocking family reckonings anyone had ever seen. Questions hung in the air heavier than ever. What would the DNA results show? How would the Trump family respond? And what would this mean for Barron from now on? As the cameras cut away and the credits rolled, millions of viewers sat in front of their screens in total shock, unable to look away. The lie was no longer hidden. It was out there for everyone to see, and in 2 days, the truth would finally come crashing down.